drama and encouraging your fucking chatters to go fuck with him about it when he said intentionally he does not want a drama channel. What the fuck? Like, and he's one of the few people who will collab with you. What the fuck are you? Why do you do this? Why can't you just try having normal relationships that aren't abusive? Are you capable?
Well, first of all, he didn't say he didn't want drama.
He just said that many times. He said, listen, I know. He said, listen, I know it's the thorp script that they burned, but I'm not a drama channel. I don't want that. Why are you guys being mean to me? You know exactly what happened, and you thought it was funny because you're a dead inside fucking ugly fucking whore who only feels a pinch of happiness when someone else is suffering.
Can I talk? Can I talk? You've had like an hour to get this out of your system, girl. Relax. Calm down. Okay. The thing about patience is I don't think it's nasty to say, yeah, I think that part of the reason why you smoke weed every day is that you're suppressing something deep down.
No, you were like, you smoke weed because your dad was abusive. Meanwhile, you are with your dad who beats your face so bad you look ugly.
Hold on. Let me just finish. Don't you do that to me? Like every time we interact is you give me advice and say that I'm having issues and you
wouldn't? Your life is so on fire. Anyone would say, hey, bitch, maybe put some water on the fucking fire, you dumb whore. And you're selling your panties now? What's up with that?
Okay, wait.
Just do it on Chatterbait. You make so much more money.
I got this one. Hang on. So you're criticizing me for doing something you do. That's called hypocrisy. That doesn't make any sense, Ruby.
So you think that it's equivalent, the way I've treated you is like your relationship with patience, chat. Are we following?
You are much harsher to me and constantly.
After what you've done to me, you've gone above and beyond to fuck with my life.
Stop cutting me off.
You've gone above and beyond to fuck with my life.
Stop cutting me off.
And I reacted. Yeah, you're a dumb, fat, ugly, evil whore. And I feel not a pinch of guilt saying that. And you like it anyway. So why are you complaining and crying like, I didn't talk to you barely like at all this whole day. You're crying.
You're proving my point right now. I wouldn't do this to patience. But it doesn't even make sense for you to do it because
So for a bit of time, I've been wanting to cover some of these stuff between Ruby and Grace because I find it very interesting. So I'm not completely aware of the full-on lore between Ruby and Grace, right? I'm not really fully aware of it, but I do know enough that both of them spoke about their history, both given their sides, right? Basically, to kind of give, I guess, more of a fair take on it, or at least from what I understand, is Ruby invited Grace to collaborate, and she also invited Ben. And Ruby said some stuff that she didn't like between the both of them. And I believe, I think it was like a week or two of them kind of being together. Somebody can correct me, or Ruby can correct me of the exact timeline. At some point in their relationship went sour, and I believe all of this happened a year ago, or if not 2 years ago. It was something around that period of time. And I know for a fact it was around the spring and summertime, so it could have been last year or it could have been the year before that. And after that, right, after the relationship went sour, Grace decided to more or less troll and detract Ruby for quite a bit of time. There's a point, I believe, Grace was, from what I understand, was attacking Ruby for a number of things. Now, Grace explained that one of the reasons it went sour was because of just Ruby acting weird, her being on some type of drug, and just stuff of that nature. Now, I'm giving both sides, even though I'm more likely to believe Ruby over Grace, but I want it to be just a little fair, right? If I come off as a little bit one-sided or not one-sided or more neutral, that's why. Because I probably will give my own take towards the end. I just wanted to at least give sort of as I would say, kind of a neutral understanding of what led to the relationship collapsing. And then eventually after, I think what Grace called the Rubicon was it's when Grace would troll Ruby. Now after that event, at some point down the line, obviously Grace would join the LCU. Same thing for Ruby, funny enough, because Ruby would audition for a Grace role on Queens during that period of time, for which we know was kind of actually mostly scripted, from what I remember, unless I'm misremembering that part too. But I know for a fact that I think it was either Mike or even Grace admit that her kind of getting fired was sort of scripted, but not exactly scripted. Something like that, right? I'm probably misremembering certain things. After that, right, after they were both on and eventually got kicked out, there was a brief period of time where they weren't really interacting with each other. And then they kind of got into a bit of a fight. Then around that period of time, RTU got kicked off from Queens. Not Queens, from his show from the LCU, which eventually, led to that whole event. But beforehand, Grace went IRL on Ruby. And again, this is all recorded. Now, Grace said that they were just driving to town, as we know that wasn't really the case because weeks prior before that, Ruby did invite Grace only, not Ben, just Grace if she wanted a place to stay. Obviously, maybe Ruby should have probably worded it better in hindsight, but even if she was to word it out, spell it out, I don't think it would have mattered. Just at this point, it wouldn't really matter at that period of time. Now, fast forward a couple of weeks, there were some fighting, and then a week ago, or 11 days ago, right, the clip I showed prior was them interacting, right? This wasn't the first time I think Grace was on stream, but I'm using that particular clip from a week ago to kind of fast forwarding up to current event, right? And obviously at that time Ruby was very upset because Grace had a tendency to bring up Ruby past and use it against her, right? And in response, either Ruby would ignore it, but there's only so much a person could ignore, right? When you're kind of, people are using your dead brother as an insult against you, and then obviously Ruby respond would be obviously insulting how much Grace will look like her mom or the incestual relationship that Grace and Ben has, stuff of that nature. Now, 4 days ago, right before technically this video would be uploaded Wednesday, but 4 days ago or 5 days ago, Grace did popped up on Ruby's stream. Now, before we get into that, there's another clip we gotta play.
Mistakes that I made in the past because, she just doesn't have the self-esteem to know that there's more for her in this world besides getting punched and raped by daddy, and paying for his kids or whatever. But I would like to see if maybe she's open to just saying like, hey, let's just both do no IRL. That seems like it would be the best route for all parties involved. Say whatever the fuck you want about me. I know I carry half your content, but why do you have to take it IRL? And you just keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And I've tried to go the legal route. I filed for the restraining order. So at least it's all documented. So when they do fuck with me again, it is documented that I filed a restraining order on these people and I called the cops on them. I would just like a ceasefire of IRL because I don't want to, if I do some things I'm thinking about doing, I would lose the moral high ground, and I don't want to. And this is how people lose themselves and become like the Thorps. They just lower themselves and lower themselves. So it's not a path I want to go down, but I don't know what the alternatives are if she just wants to keep going this route. So that's why I wanted to see what you said, chat. I'm going to drop the link for her. She's probably too pussy, fat, and ugly to do it. Maybe daddy will do it. I mean, he's I'd probably get more direct info from him of what he's trying to plot anyway. Oh, yeah, I posted a short of it. I'll just show it to you there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's against Kick2OS to encourage people to fuck with my IRL doctors so that I can't get my medicine. What is this shit? All for what? Because I was mad that you announced that you were going to drive to South Carolina to fuck with my trip? Of course. She's like, she's so used to just spewing hate. She doesn't even know what's going on. She's like, I don't understand. She's mad. All I do is say that after 12 hours to go fucking him and She's lost, man. She's lost. All over your fucking stupid head.
I think we are entering the era of the Joker.
I mean, they just keep going down and down. You know, Ruby and Ava are routinely pulling better numbers than these fools. King's a fan. The degradation has been crazy. It's been crazy, but I don't, you know, just proximity to them. Well, A, it's bad for business. It's bad for social connections. The fact that I'm associated with them just works against me. But maybe that's it. They're just like desperate to stay in my storyline, which they realized and announced that they are the villains to my plot. I'm the protagonist. It's true. You're the villains. The thing is, I used to think that she had some potential, but she doesn't think it. Ben doesn't think it.
Now, as I said, this clip was from 4 days ago. And it was mostly focusing around the sort of Grace going IRL because Ruby, Ava, and Lo were planning to do an IRL event in real life. Now, I believe Savage may be part of it unless things have changed since then, but I'm pretty sure they want to be part of that whole thing together. Now, during this, obviously, Ruby was obviously pissed off, and around between 11 days ago, so a week ago, and this particular clip that happened 4 or 5 days ago, there was some back and forth between Grace and Ruby, particularly Grace stream sniping Ruby, and obviously going AP. Now, I did forget to mention an individual called Payson because he is sort of important. Ruby wanted to collab, not Ruby, Grace wanted to kind of help him out. He doesn't really do a lot of drama. And I know that one of the issues that Grace had with him was because he smoked marijuana as a way to cope with the situation. Now, I do believe, I do think if he is watching, he can correct me on this. So, mind you, I do believe Payson did go on Ruby's stream and kind of gave some, I believe, some point towards Grace. Not fully, but some point. And I do know he is in Ruby's server. I forgot to mention that in the previous voiceover because I just forgot. It is important to the story because this particular clip that we just watched was just dealing with the IRL stuff that Grace has a tendency to do a lot. Obviously, we saw it with the LCL, and we obviously saw it with this. Now, later on, Grace would pop up, same thing with Savage and the end.
Just name one friend, Grace.
Effortless victory, she rage quit and can't name a friend. But just stop.
You're gonna cry yourself to sleep tonight over
I
that.
won't have to escalate to yours, bitch. That's the message. Truce or not? Are you gonna fuck with my IRL more or not?
I have never fucked with your IRL.
You showed up my house and job.
You
You
just
fucking
did.
boxed me. You just said you're calling my doctor.
Job. I know where your job is, and it's
You
not.
said you're going to drive to South Carolina.
I'd never said that. I said, in fact, that I would never do such a thing because
I think she just wants to be friends, Ruby. She
You
doesn't
better
have
not.
anybody.
I could see that when she's walking. She does.
Because she doesn't have any.
I was the closest one. I was the only one who was willing to look past your weird incest and try to get to know you, but you blew it, bitch. You blew it by trying to impress your dad. He's so cool. He's so
not
cool.
even
He's
her
definitely good
siblings
to-
will be her
you know?
friend.
I don't understand how you don't realize how it's increasingly bizarre getting how old and fat and weird you guys are. Like, there used to be some visual component that was interesting, but with the weight gain and the just general downfall, it's hard
Look
to
at her
watch.
fidgeting and shit. She's
I
fucking
know.
nervous, dude. She knows she's
I know she's
losing
like,
right now.
I'm just going to hang up and leave.
You want to suck on that pen again?
Yeah, that was hot when you did that.
Maybe that'll soothe you. Help.
I got just
soothe
fucked
you a
it.
little.
I actually have a question for the whole panel. If you guys would stop shrieking like hags for 1 minute.
Well, why would we answer any of your questions if you won't even answer if you're one friend?
No,
We
I
keep
wanna
asking
hear
you
her
and you won't
answer.
answer any of our
Wait a
questions.
minute.
I've ignited another shrieking round. Okay, go ahead, get it out of your
I want to hear.
Name a friend.
Okay, no, seriously, girls, listen. What's your question, Grace? What's your question? Can we?
I
get her off the
would
full
like to
screen,
ask
Ruby.
all of you, since you all claim to be bisexual, if not outright lesbian, what eating tastes like and what dick lacks for you that a pussy makes up for.
Oh, I'll answer that if you answer this, Grace.
Mhm.
Name one
Get her off
friend.
full screen, Ruby.
Yeah.
My sister Maggie.
The one with the
So
restraint.
a family member. The one who you posted. You secretly.
The one who you want your dad to
Wait,
rape
is
instead of
Maggie?
you?
Wait, hold on. Is Maggie the one where you secretly recorded her
Wait a
crying
minute.
and then posted it on the internet?
I missed something.
That's
Hold
your
up.
friend?
Wait,
Bro, I
wait.
can't. I
I
can't. She's too
missed
much.
something. What did she say?
She's
What
too
did you
much.
say, Grace? Can you repeat it? I didn't hear it.
I said since all of you claim to be bisexual, but you're all women, so
Mhm.
that would mean lesbian stuff.
No, you turned me straight
Two
again and celibate.
questions.
Hallelujah. You're doing the
What
Lord's
does
work.
eating pussy feel like? And number two,
Have you
what
been
does pussy
fantasizing about that?
have
You only
that-
watch lesbian porn.
Yeah,
Well,
you
I
do only
couldn't-
watch lesbian
Oh my
porn.
God.
Isn't that true? That's what your dad says.
What you think
I
about?
can't even get the question out. Okay, I don't know what the point is.
What is this
so
about?
sad.
What
Wait,
is
you
this
wanna know what
about
pussy
your
tastes
sister,
like?
Maggie? What is this?
Two
about
questions.
your sister? What
So
happened?
you want to know what
does
pussy
what
tastes like, and
does-
your best friend is your
Ruby,
sister.
wait.
What does eating pussy taste like? And what does it do for you? And secondly, what does pussy have for you as women that dick lacks? Curious.
I can
Um,
tell you one. Okay, I'm the oldest here. I'll tell you right now. Sometimes, there.
And in this particular clip we have here is Grace joining this stream that happened like 4 days ago. Yeah, 4 days ago. This happened like 4 days ago. And obviously Savage joined. Now, a lot of people felt, I would say, two ways. Either A, they felt that it was kind of unfair that Grace was being attacked. It was basically 1 versus 3. Another felt that it would kind of justify it. Now, to give point to both sides is, on one side, the 3 versus 1, I could kind of understand why it may seem kind of unfair for 3 older women to kind of more or less go against 1 woman. I say technically, I think Ava and Grace are closer to age, so we apologize for that one. But even still, I can see why some people felt that I was like kind of unnecessary. And throughout this whole thing, Grace didn't really get a chance to talk mostly, but I felt like every time they could have gone down and had a proper conversation, I think it would have been derailed regardless, because they were both heated against each other. Even if there was a way to mitigate the dog pile, I think it wouldn't have mattered regardless. Now, on the other side, for those who felt that this was perfectly justified, it makes sense given that Grace has a history of just using people's past or using personal things on people. So her being attacked against 3 other women is perfectly justified. And again, I can see both sides of the argument easily. And now, personally, I'm kind of, I wouldn't know where I'm at, because I understand the trouble Grace has put on Ruby. On the other hand, this could have probably been handled a lot better. Maybe they shouldn't have had the, Ava and Savage on, and it would have been easier that way for them to properly talk. But I think at this point that they were both heated from the last couple of days, and the last time they interacted, it wouldn't have mattered. They were just extremely heated no matter what. So even if the other 2 women weren't there, I think it probably would have ended the same. It would have not went anywhere, right? That's how I would have seen it. Even if they would have handled it a lot better, I think just them being pissed off at each other was already there, and that there was no way to kind of like handle it properly unless you give it a couple more days, because obviously Ruby is more, and I'm trying to remember the exact word Ruby would probably use. Ruby's a little crazy, and I think she would agree with that, and her emotions are a little bit more unstable. And Grace is a little bit unhinged in the sense that she can be very much an emotionless monster. So when you have one person who's highly emotional and another person that is not very emotional, and they're both extremely heated and are wanting blood from both of them, from each other, it kind of makes sense that this would be the end result, right? It's just
Hi. How's it going?
It's going real well, and I did have a long conversation with Grace in which I did say, and she did follow through and say, like, this stuff, we don't have to get into it, but a lot of the stuff that she's done with you and we've done with you, it rides a line. It's totally unnecessary, and I can say whatever you want. Like, we have no intention of showing up in South Carolina,
Okay.
and don't encourage anyone to do that. So that's sincere. I mean, I think like, it would be stupid. What would we even do? But
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that, but I'm curious.
So-
what do you think about? So you didn't hear about this until you just saw me playing. I mean, this just
No.
happened. That episode, I believe, is still live.
Oh, it
I was
did.
just watching it, and then when I saw Beans whip up that scenario, I was like, "This is too funny. I need to make a stream about this."
Yeah.
So what do you
it's
think?
crazy.
Is it true? What? Tell us.
Well, I do think. Okay, so if I'll say this, I think is true as a streamer to streamer. We don't have to get personal. Keem has alienated some of the best talent that he has. Like, you would have been. I always said you would have been great on that show. You're a queen. I've always everyone on their show said Grace should be on that show. She's a queen. Lynx has her own thing, a little different than you guys, but like she's a superstar. And then I actually predicted the Savage thing. I was like, she's too entertaining. He's gonna boot her. But now you've got all the stars off the show, and they're left with, I would say Becky's talented. You agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. They have some talent, but I agree with you. They're quickly alienating anyone who's like, because Popstar does have a lot of talent, but it's like they just lay down all these insane rules, and it's like, who would want to work with that? Also, when you have to say that you're not going to do any of your own individual streaming, that hurts you, Keem. You're creating an insular universe that's increasingly irrelevant.
Right. But as a streamer, like I was saying, when Savage, and I know you guys were shit talking each other, but you, Ava, Grace, and Savage, that was better than anything LCU puts out. I'm sorry. It just was, in terms of the quality of entertainment. And I understand like there was some personal stuff, but if that can be gotten over, and like I would just say that like women have a way in which they want to make the bag. Like I don't know that they care as much about like looking good as getting the bag. Whereas Keem seems like he just wants to look good, and he doesn't care how much real talent he alienates. So I think, it is kind of interesting that, like, in a certain sense, the Voldemorts actually rule their, because actually I never read Harry Potter, but isn't it true that like by calling someone Voldemort, you give them more power? Isn't that even true within Harry Potter?
It's crazy. Like, it's super counterproductive, and it just doesn't.
Well, it depends who it's productive for. But if you're rooting for the LCU, then you would say it's counterproductive. But if you're actually saying like, well, you could set up an alternative LCU, go head to head with them, and take all their viewers, then it's quite productive. You know what I mean? Like every negative thing has a positive thing to it. And I think Shittucky, as far as Popstar, I interact with her for a couple of minutes. I'm not going to say right here and now whether I do have a relationship with her beyond that, but like maybe I do, because I have had a lot of interactions with Black YouTube, and I have encouraged a lot of Black YouTubers to get into the lolcow sphere. They have a really hard time, but Popstar is not as hesitant. And I know as a white, it's not so much Black people are victims, but like any person who feels like an outsider, like when I was in the Blackosphere, it was tough. You know what I mean? You're treated differently. And so to be like immediately so judgmental about, especially I think a 19-year-old girl, I mean, who doesn't seem to be that like crazy of a person at all. But on top of it,
like in school, she has her life like very together, and she's obviously very competent and would, to be good in that universe, to the point where I think he needs to at least see, like, if there's someone who's really talented, maybe give them a longer leash. Okay, if you're going to run this whole cult operation, but he won't even do that.
If you're bringing, if the audience is mostly male, which it is, I mean, she's a very attractive woman.
Beautiful, big boobs out, like everything they're looking for, she is, except they can't control her. But that's why she's doing it. It's like they don't get that, like.
Right, and I agree. Like, and also I would imagine, just he would be normally looking for like a Black demographic. If you want Black guys to come to your channel, well, you can't do better than her, because she's she's a very attractive and also very feminine Black woman. She doesn't have the attitude that you sometimes get, like where it's just like a kind of stereotype, like ghetto mama. She's like very normal, but whatever. So it's really stupid. But so why not, like you were saying, I think you have this sort of mind. You could see like where there's an opportunity when someone's doing something stupid, who should be shut down because he's a terrible person. Why not troll it, you know? And I don't know.
Well, you
I don't
guys
know
were
how to get in
doing
touch
that, and
with
then
her.
you
I'd love
guys
to get
went
in
way
touch
too
with her.
far with it, and then there was the consequences. Like, I think driving to Fat Camp was like too far, even though I hate Keemstar, and I did think there were some funny moments that came out of it. At the end of the day, I just think it ultimately didn't. I don't know. I don't think it's worth it to go to those.
I would say it was successful.
And you guys were
for us
with the
as
Lolcow Rejects
streamers.
original. I think that, and even like Becky said, she would watch that show. The
Yeah.
hosts were watching your show. So why did you guys?
Right.
Why'd you stop doing that kind of coverage?
Yeah, actually,
And here we are at current time, where we have Ben talking to Ruby. Now, right before they started, right before Ben jumped on panel, both Grace and Ben, in their own separate account, were talking in the chat while live, and more or less kind of apologizing to Ruby about the whole situation that has been occurring the last couple of days. Now, they said that, I think, I could be misremembering, but I do believe, I think Grace was the first to apologize. I don't know. I don't think it was her, but I think Ben alluded that they had a private struggle session, and that obviously that he, I think he made her apologize, and then Grace apologized right after, and I think she kind of said it was like, all it was unnecessary now, and that she was bored with his. But I'll get into that when we get into that. And eventually, Ben asked that he could be on. Ruby said sure, but only for a couple minutes. And eventually, he got on, and they more or less, and I wouldn't say entirely squashed the beef, but for the most part, kind of did. In the sense that I think they're not trying to go at each other IRL, right? Because just how excessive that can be, and how it doesn't look good for anybody, right? And I think for a lot of people, and I'll give my take in a little bit, I think there are two sides of it. There's one side that says don't trust her, don't trust Grace. On the other side, it's just people that are finally happy that they're not fighting each other, because Ruby and Grace do share a lot of people, right? They both share a lot of the same audience, right? General audience, right? If you watch Ruby, you're more likely to watch Grace, and if you watch Grace, you're probably gonna watch Ruby, and obviously Ava and Lola. Like the good example is Tommy King, right? Or Napstar, people like that, right? Even myself, I watch these people because I found them through Grace, and I think for a lot of people, or at least like split in the middle, where some people don't trust them because they're a known liar and manipulator, and the others are just happy this is done and over with. Now, my personal take comes down to, I do think that both sides are very valid, but I'm gonna have to lean with the side that say don't trust them. Now, I think the reason I'm saying that is it'd be kind of interesting, and I'll give my reasoning. Now, the reason why I don't side with the peace people is because, like, how many times have we seen this happen where they come, have sort of this a peace agreement, right? And only lasts for a couple weeks or a couple days, and then you go back to like Grace going intense sicko mode, right? I'm pretty sure we've seen it a few times in the last 6 months, and at that point, I think a lot of people, I saw some people saying that if you forgive them and they backstab you, that's on you, which is how I kind of feel. And I'm not trying to be a dickhead when I'm saying it, because I am kind of concerned that on one hand, Ruby, I know you want peace, you want to settle things through on the internet because it's better than IRL, because IRL can get very messy and dirty, which is 100% true, but you got to remember that they are kind of known for lying and manipulating. But I also think that maybe in a way they may be wanting to not do stuff like this anymore, just because I saw Grace saying that she's kind of bored of this stuff, which it could be a red flag, or I could be, misinterpreting what she's probably trying to say. Now, the reason, and I think that's kind of the reason why I'm leaning towards to not believing them, is because they have a tendency to lie and manipulate. But if they don't want to fight and they're just sick of all of this and they just want to make content, I don't know. Who am I to say, right? You never know with people. Maybe they wake up one day and they have a coming to God or a coming to Jesus moment and they realize this is just ridiculous. Or maybe there's something else that's going on and we just don't know about. Right? Only way we know is through time and see how things fold and how these events shape. Right? This could just be them really wanting to make peace. Or this could be a one big psyop. I'm not sure. The only thing I can say is just be careful and be safe. If they do backstab you, I don't want to be the asshole who says this, but if they do backstab you, it's on you. Right? Most people will say that, and I'm willing to say that. But if they don't, then this is sort of a temporary or maybe even lasting peace. Then that is what it is. Enjoy it for now. Right? Till then, yo. And as always, be safe. Particularly you, Ruby. Be safe.